Hello Nippy lovers! Today we highlight the best beer I've brewed so far in my short time on the homebrewing scene, a double dry hopped New England IPA. India Pale Ales are a very popular beer of choice these days, and they were the poster child of the flourishing craft beer movement, especially as influenced from the US, and they remain incredibly popular. I won't go into the colourful history of IPA here, but suffice to say the modern style typically favours pale malt, a light body, highlights hops with an assertive floral, citric, piney, tropical fruit aroma and flavours with a medium to high bitterness. The New England IPA, or Nippy, or Hazy IPA, or Juicy IPA, or Vermont IPA as it's sometimes called, is a regional variant coming from the east coast of the United States, which continues this IPA focus on being hop forward, while also turning up the volume on being intensely fruity, with typically tropical and citrus fruit qualities, a much smoother and fuller mouthfeel with a more medium body, and very characteristic hazy appearance, often turning the beer opaque, with a light amber to orange hue. The haziness is due to several factors, including brewing with high protein grains like wheat and flaked oats, and the type of yeast used, but combined with no filtering and heavy dry hopping, a cloudy haze develops. Hop additions for IPAs usually are concerned with adding particularly aromatic hops at the later stages of boiling the wort, to impart a fragrant hop taste and smell, as opposed to earlier in the boil, which imparts bitterness. Dry hopping is so called because it involves adding hops in their dry state even later to preserve the volatile acids, esters and essential oils in the hops, normally adding them while the beer is cooled and fermenting. In cases of double dry hopping, like the beer I'm brewing, we're adding hops not only at the start of the boil, and in later stages of the boil, we're adding even more 3 days and 6 days into a 10-day fermentation. But what about the Nippy I chose to brew? Well, some researching led me to a recipe I love the sound of from an excellent YouTuber, Gash from the Homebrew Network, who published the steps for his Sabro Tooth. As the name implies, he utilizes Sabro hops, which feature a coconutty, tropical flavor. There's also two very commonly used hops in IPAs which really complement each other, Citra and Mosaic, both adding strong citrus, grapefruit, mango and pine. For the all-important malt, we've got about 43% Weihenmann Bohemian Pilsner, 32% crisp Maris Otter, 2 light-coloured malts which add a sweet, malty, moorish quality. Then we've got 9% rolled wheat flakes, 8% flaked oats, and 5 and 3% Weihenmann Carapils and pale wheat malt respectively. The wheat should add some foam stability, the oats for some smooth texture, and the Carapils also for some improved head retention and a fuller body. All in all, the recipe should leave us at 37 IBUs, low bitterness for an IPA, and an EBC of 5.9, a nice and light straw gold colour. On to the brew day. We mashed these at 65 degrees Celsius for 60 minutes, then mashed out at 76 degrees for an additional 10 minutes. For a boil of 60 minutes, we had about 37.5% Citra hop standing by, with 37.5% of Mosaic and 25% Sabro. Our additions were 2.7 grams of Citra and 2.7 grams of Mosaic, added as first wort hops at the start. Then at the end of the boil, what's called at flame out, we do something called a hop stand or whirlpool hopping. We want the hop worts to extract the essential oils which aren't released at dry hopping temperatures but would mostly vaporize at boiling temperatures. So with the wort standing for 30 minutes at around 80 degrees Celsius, we added 2.2 grams of each hop at minute mark 30 at the very start. A further 3.3 grams of each at 20 minutes remaining, and a final 4.4 grams of each with 10 minutes left. Any longer would risk raising the bitterness too much. With that chilled to a much cooler 20 degrees, we wanted our hydrometer reading to hit 1.061, and it came out at 1.062. Nice! Next comes the yeast pitch. This recipe calls for Yeast Labs 1318 London Ale 3, an English strain of yeast which has an interesting history, possibly of Boddington's bitter origin, which allows for residual sugars after fermentation, which gives a fuller mouthfeel to beers, contributes to the haziness, and it adds a light fruity character. All perfect for Nippys. Less perfect is that this is the part where things started to go wrong. Based on advice, I took a direct ratio measurement for the yeast from a larger capacity recipe to my lower 5 litre capacity batch. This left me with around 50 milliliters of liquid yeast, which I pitched, then moved the keg to the fermentation fridge and kept it at 19 degrees C. No later than 24 hours later, disaster. I had a blowout. Luckily I caught it early, and after cleaning, thorough sanitizing and replacing the airlock, I was really worried I'd blown out all the yeast and contaminated the brew, but I soldiered on. To make matters worse, when it came to doing the first dry hop at 3 days in, I accidentally pushed the bung into the keg and couldn't get it out. Cue more desperate sanitizing and a replacement bung was quickly found, and I proceeded. 8.8 grams Citra, 4.4 grams Mosaic, 4.4 grams Sabro was added, and then 3 days later for the second dry hop, another round of the same hops, same quantities. Then I raised the temperature to 21 degrees. After 10 days of fermenting, it was into the fridge for 3 days of cold crashing. Had I ruined my first Nippy? Was it all fit for pouring out into the kitchen sink? First things first, a gravity reading. We were hoping for 1.015, leaving us at 6% ABV. We got 1.012, not too bad. That bumps us up to 6.6% ABV. After some meticulous filtering and bottling, I was so surprised. I was stunned to find that there were no off aromas or flavours. The beer gods were good to me, and I ended up with one of the best beers I'd brewed so far, despite a lot of very, very noobish mistakes. It is highly recommended to never bottle condition a Nippy, as they are incredibly susceptible to oxidizing. They go brown and they spoil very quickly. Nevertheless, in my ignorance, I did that for 1 week, and the increase in carbonation was fantastic. Had really good foam, great fizz, it was hazy with sumptuously juicy, citric, tropical fruit flavours and a very hop-forward taste. It was so refreshing, it was really Moorish, and it did not last long. I've learned a lot from my errors with this homebrew, and for my next Nippy, I really want to try treating the water to really hone in on that Nippy style. But hold on, I hear you asking, why is it called Nippy New Nippy? What does that even mean? Well, being nippy in my family just means that you're cold. If you're a cold person, you're a nippy new. Since this was bottled in February when it was particularly cold, just seemed to make sense. We also threw on a picture of frozen Norwegian lake from one of our holiday snaps, and put the words in a heavy metal band's font. Bonus points if you can figure out who that heavy metal band is. The next beer from the brew house, though, was a much in vogue beer at the moment, enjoying a great revival, a dark mild. Join me next time to see how that turned out. Thanks for watching. Until next time, cheers!